Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. EU and African Union leaders have wrapped up a two-day summit in Luanda, Angola, focused on renewing political and economic cooperation and advancing joint priorities under the EU's Global Gateway strategy. Beyond discussions on Ukraine, both sides emphasised energy partnerships, long-term development and Africa's growing agency in global governance, with Europe seeking deeper, more equitable engagement by 2027. Questions remain over whether this new phase can truly reset the relationship. To explore the implications of this summit, we're joined by Jan Wieliński, former Polish Ambassador to Zimbabwe and Malawi. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to TVP World and thank you for taking the time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Editor. Good afternoon, viewers.
Good afternoon to you, sir. So let's start with your general takeaways from this summit. What's your impression of the main issues?
My impression is that this particular summit, seventh summit of the European Union and Africa Union, is particularly important. Why is it important? Because the summit is trying to sum up the achievements and progress made so far during 25 years of cooperation between two groupings. Additionally, also is trying to map out the strategy for the next couple of years to help Africa in solving their problem. And that's why, in my opinion, it's one of the most important summit which is taking presently place in Luanda.
Right, thank you for that. Now we've got a short soundbite here, which I'd like to share with you, and then I'll get your view on it, which emphasises the goals, the trajectory of this summit. We've got it coming right up.
Together, as it was mentioned, the EU and the EU make up 40% of UN member states. You have the power to uphold the Charter, broker agreements, and steer the world towards a more stable, more inclusive reality where international law prevails and injustices and inequalities are progressively eliminated. Out of the turbulence of today, you can craft a new era of hope for unity, for equality, and for peace.
Right, it's Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. I mean, those are pretty big goals. And as he says, it's 40% of UN members were represented there. Give us some more details, some more specifics about what he was talking about when he talked about unity and peace and so on.
Yes.
Be more specific, please.
First of all, they are talking about the peace, security and multilateralism. Because for Africa is important. If you compare the present situation in Africa with that for many years ago, when about 20 coups d'etat were taking place in Africa, you can see that Africa more or less is stable. Of course, we have some conflicts and even wars like in Sudan or in Democratic Republic of Congo. But generally, right now, Africa is more stable than 25 years ago. That's why security is very important question for European Union and for African Union. Additionally, the representatives of the European Union are taking part in a military missions in many African countries, in Libya, Mali, Niger, Somalia. It is a contribution. There is a special system which is called Peace Facility, which is financed by European Union, which is helping African countries to prepare international peacekeeping force for the conflict which are taking place in Africa.
Understood. So the EU is contributing towards peace, stability across Africa. What's the quid pro quo? What are the African countries then going to be able to provide for the European Union? What's the exchange?
The exchange is also military. The exchange is limited, but there is a program for the youth in Africa. During the years 20 to 30, about 30,000 of lecturers and students from African countries will be studying in the European Union countries, and about 18,000 of students and lecturers from Europe will go visit and conduct their research in African countries. This is done to make closer both continents, additionally to make mutual understanding between Africa and Europe.
Understood. Now, just earlier I was talking to our Africa correspondent who attended the summit, and she said that two areas in particular were also highlighted, those of migration and those of energy resources and minerals that are being extracted from Africa for use by the European Union. Let's start with migration. What do you think the balance, the solutions are there? We've got illegal migration coming into European Union, and the African countries are saying, well, you know, the EU is making it very difficult for our people to come and visit the EU. Where is the happy medium?
First of all, if you want, you need to create the job employment. You should take into consideration that 50% of the population of Africa is below 30 years old. These people need education and need employment. Many of them consider that only in Europe they can get it. Additionally, the job. That's why to create the employment and education for Africans in Africa is very important. Additionally, European Union is trying to control migration. That's why there is a process of remigration, when people are given the money to start business, small business in Africa. And I think that this process will contribute to cut illegal migration, also through the cooperation with the African countries.
Understood. Now, clearly another part of that puzzle is investment in businesses and so on in Africa. Europe has already started to do that. I mean, Poland, for example, has entered into a deal to invest 4 billion zloty in Uganda. How important is European investment in business in Africa?
Very important. Why? Because it creates the job opportunities for people. For example, we are not only investing in Uganda, but we are also investing in Arabic countries. We are investing in Rwanda. You know why? Because these new entrepreneurs are creating possibilities for an African to start working in a joint venture. Additionally, it's not a secret, but the profit from investment in Africa is higher than from investment in Europe. And that's why European Union is planning to spend about 150 billion US dollars on euros on different investments in Africa to help to create the jobs for a young generation.
Understood. Now, the other area of discussion was the extraction of minerals and energy resources from Africa. And what our correspondent was saying was that, you know, the African countries want to play a bigger role. They don't want to feel that they are simply a resource and are not receiving anything in return. How do you see that picture playing out, where both sides are happy?
It's not easy. It's not easy, but why? Because we have competitors like China, you know, but in my opinion, European Union is proposing the equal treatment. It means that additionally, apart from importing the mineral resources from Africa, the European Union is teaching the engineers, workers, you know, how useful are these minerals and how they can contribute not only to the development of Europe, but also to the development of Africa. And it is the difference between European Union and China, in my opinion.
Understood.
I have watched many Chinese investments, and let us say sometimes I was rather critical.
Right. So as I understand it, you're saying very diplomatically that basically Chinese investment has a one-directional return.
Yeah.
And that's to China. Whereas European investments, you think, could go in both directions.
Additionally, Chinese also are trying to bring politically the Chinese model to those countries which provide mineral resources, saying that their model is more profitable for Africa than European Union model, which I do not agree.
Well, you may not agree, and many listening to this may not agree. But what about the African countries who are hearing this message? What is their response?
Slowly. You know, the situation is like this. Okay, China is a very rich country. The credit of China are providing without any conditions. Additionally, for them is mostly written. Even the private Chinese businessmen, when they are going to Africa, they have the support from Chinese bank. So they are very privileged. You know, European Union wants to use this money properly. And sometimes the Africans, you know, want a little bit more. You know, we say there is a corruption. They say it is bakshishi, you know. And that's a small problem between the investment of European Union and Chinese investment. Sometimes they do not agree, but I have talked with some African leaders who told me that they see the danger in Chinese policy. Why? Because Africa is too dependent. So that's why they are welcome the investment from United States, European Union, to balance what Chinese are investing in Africa.
Understood. Now, you're ambassador to Malawi and Zimbabwe. Those two countries, how do you see their development since you were last there?
Zimbabwe is recently, in June this year, there was a summit, European Union Zimbabwe. There are plenty of opportunities. What is very encouraging, that the president of Zimbabwe decided to return some of the farm which was taken by the government during the late Mugabe era from the white farmers, violating the agreements on protection of bilateral investment.
Right.
So it means, in my opinion, it is a step in positive direction. Yeah. I welcome it, and I talked recently with one of the ministers that I expect that this step will be wider, because there are about 400 farms taken from the white farmers from Belgium, Holland, Austria, which were taken while violating this agreement. And these people, I have a contact with some of them, so they are ready to go back. You know, right. They spend a lot of years in Zimbabwe,
yes.
And they can contribute to the development of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a rich country, and once the development will take place, it will be flourishing. In the past, Zimbabwe provided the food for many African countries.
Yes, well, it was certainly the breadbasket of that part of Africa. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks, but don't go away. As always, lots more coming up. Goodbye.